G'day guys, Mac with the Outer Circle, and today we're looking at the Sicaran battle tank in this episode of Getting Started in Horus Heresy. Now, first thing I want to point out, this bundle here is not a great bundle to buy. Tempting though it may be, and temporarily out of stock though it may be, you can't take 4 different types of Sicaran in your army list unless you are the Iron Warriors, or you're playing a Space Marine Legion using all 3 heavy support slots for Sicaran battle tanks, and then taking an allied detachment who's also bringing one. It's not a good investment. You'd be better off buying the tanks individually. Anyway, that aside, let's go look at the original, the Legion Sicaran battle tank. Now, this beauty, when it first came out, it dropped between books 1 and books 2 and got its full rules in book 2, but we already had a PDF set of the rules by then anyway. The Sicaran battle tank was a real game changer for the game as a whole, because this is the first thing that sort of broke the mold of a 40k game system. In the past, when people would play games of 30k, homebrew rules, that kind of thing, or even 40k in general with Space Marines, the sort of vehicles you always saw were Rhinos, Predators, Vindicators, Whirlwinds, and of course, Land Raiders. But with the advent of the Sicaran battle tank, all of a sudden you had a vehicle which had more firepower than a Predator, and was almost as heavily armoured as a Land Raider, and was faster than both of those tanks. This was a game changer. It meant that all of a sudden, people had something that was viable against bolt guns. One of the biggest letdowns of battle tanks in general has been the fact that they've got rear armor of 10. Bolt guns could slaughter them. Crack grenades made a mockery of them. And melter bombs, well, they make a mockery of any vehicle. But this thing, 13 armor on the front, 12 on the side, and 12 on the rear. Glorious 12. Immune to heavy bolters, immune to bolters. Barely scratched by strength 6 weaponry. All of a sudden, this is a really, really good thing. And it's a fast vehicle. You essentially can move this thing for 6 inches and still fire everything you've got at full ballistic skill. Win after win after win. And it shows, because to this day, this is the single most popular vehicle in the entire Horus Heresy, as far as I can tell. I've seen them in just about every single army, every single promo pick that anyone has done of their Marine faction. Not to say that everyone has one, but I think it's a safe bet to say it's the most popular vehicle. I see more of these than I see Predators or Rhinos. Key to, of course, this tank's abilities is that main gun on top, the Accelerator autocannon. Now this again breaks the mold, because this is something we hadn't seen before. This is something new. It's range 48, it's strength 7, it's AP 4. Oh, that's all autocannon stats. Yeah, that is autocannon stats. Except for the fact that heavy 6, rending, and enemies can't take jinx saves against it. And it's twin linked. Holy crap. So it hits its enemies. When it hits them, it can rend them. This thing can punch flyers out of the air. This thing can actually penetrate a flare-shielded Land Raider if it needs to. I wouldn't bet on it, but it can do it. On top of that, no jinx saves. So when you start shooting those pesky jet bikes and flyers that have been annoying you all game, yeah, if you can land some hits, this thing will actually do some damage. The ability to rend means it can actually one-shot flyers, something a lot of the strength 7 weapons in the game lack. Yeah, they hurt the flyers, they chip hull points off them, but they lack the AP to truly do something. This bypasses that issue with the rending rule. The Sicaran battle tank is just fantastic, and taking triple heavy bolters for its sponsons and sort of limited traverse central mounting, great options. Less cannons, also viable on this. There is no downside to taking them because your main weapon is not an ordnance weapon. The Sicaran battle tank is the warhorse, the jack of all trades. It can't do everything expertly, but it pretty much does everything well. And that's what makes it such a great vehicle. The next vehicle on our list is the Legion Sicker Venator. This one dropped between books 2 and books 3. Now, the Sicker Venator, I don't know, there's something I just love about the profile of it. Maybe it's because it reminds me of some of those World War II German tank destroyers like the Jagdpanther or the Elephant, Jagdtiger, Stug, Hetzer, all sorts of options. Regardless, this thing is the OG tank killer. Now, where the Sicaran brought quantity of firepower and the ability to deal with a wide variety of targets and threats, the Sicker Venator, which funny enough costs the same points as it costs dollars in Australia to buy, this thing brought quality, and the quality of its firepower is that main gun. That neutron beam laser. Range only 36, but on a fast vehicle, that's fine. 24 is where I start to go, this is not great. So range 36, strength 10, AP 1, ordnance 2. And that counts because ordnance means two big things. First, you snapfire all the other weapons on the vehicle when you fire it. And second, you get to roll 2 dice being the highest for your armor penetration rolls, which is amazing on an anti-armor weapon. Also, it's 2 shots. What's not to love about 2 shots at strength 10 AP 1? It's also concussive, can have its benefits, and the best thing of all, shock pulse. If this penetrates an enemy vehicle, that vehicle can only snapfire until the end of the next turn. That is huge, especially when you take on super heavy vehicles like the Typhon with its strength 10, 7-inch wide, AP 1 ignores cover weapon. Yeah, shutting that thing down is a godsend. This tank is phenomenal for doing that sort of role. The Sicker Venator is probably my favourite tank hunting vehicle in the game, hands down. The one thing that lets this down, cannot be taken in squadrons when other more niche versions of the Sicaran can, which really does suck. Now, that whole ordnance, meaning that you can only snapfire the other weapons on the vehicle, it's kind of a big deal. Because yes, you can take las cannon sponsons, but it's going to cost you 40 points to do that on an already nearly 200 point vehicle. Don't take the las cannons, you'll never get to use them at full ballistic skill. If you are, you're firing a worse version, essentially with 2 las cannon shots, of your main gun, just with slightly better range, but you've got worse AP, no concussive, no shock pulse, no ordnance. It's nowhere near as good. Pay less points, take just heavy bolters. If you have 9 heavy bolters on this thing, say you're up against a Horde army, or you're being rushed down by a squad of Space Marines, rather than trying to use the vehicle to fire 2 shots of that main gun at them and snap firing some las cannons, at least you'll have the backup of firing a whole crap load of heavy bolters at your enemy. 9 heavy bolters is nothing to sniff at, especially against Solar Auxilia and Militia. That thing will carve holes through their armies. So, keep that in mind if you get one of these tanks. Next, we move on to the New Wave. Now, the New Wave, I call them that because we got a wave of 3 Sicaran variants that all came out in the lead up to Book 7. The Punisher, the Omega, and the Arcus. Now, the Punisher is the first one we'll look at. The Punisher I regarded as being overpowered when it first released. Namely because you could keep firing this thing twice a turn. But it's since been nerfed to essentially if you fire this thing twice in a turn, then it can't fire in the next turn. But we'll get into that. The Sicaran Punisher is also the first of the vehicles to get a squadron buff. So with the advent of Book 8, you can take these in a squadron of up to 2, something that both the original and the other Sicaran variant should have access to. The fact that they don't is a bit disappointing. If it's for balance reasons or such, well, there's nothing stopping Forge World from making Sicaran squadrons a 0-1 choice. It wouldn't really unbalance the game that badly, I don't think, when you can take 3 in heavy supports as it is. In any case, it has a special rule called Rolling Thunder. When you fire the Punisher rotary cannon, that's that big rotary cannon on top, which is 36 inches range, it's strength 5, it's AP 4, and it's heavy 18. Essentially, it's 6 heavy bolters strapped to one another. On any turn in which the Sicaran Punisher does not move in both the movement and shooting phase, the controlling player may choose to have the Punisher rotary cannon gain the rending special rule for its shooting attacks made that turn. Oof, 18 shots with rending strength 5 is nothing to sniff at. It can kill a lot of things. So, not overpowered anymore without that doubled shooting, where it was shooting 36 shots out of that main gun. Instead, just using that rending ability. It's pretty neat. Do keep in mind, it's the rotary cannon, it's not the las cannons, it's not the heavy bolters, it's not your pintle weapon. Now, if you do take this, keep in mind, this can take a lot of pintle weapons. Now, Blood Angels, it may be viable to take an assault cannon as a pintle weapon on top. Me personally, I would take it with 4 autocannons. 2 on the side sponsons, 1 on the center mount, and 1 on the pintle. Combine that with the Punisher itself, and you've got essentially 10 heavy bolters coming out of one vehicle hull. Take 2 of those, you've got 20 heavy bolters, that's 60 shots. That will shred a Demons of the Ruinstorm, or Militia, or Solar Auxiliary Army, and it will cause even Marine Legions a lot of problems with that much Strength 5, AP 4 firepower, especially if you know, rending. Alright, moving on from the Sicaran Punisher, we get to the Sicaran Arcus. The Sicaran Arcus is without doubt the strongest of the Sicaran battle tanks, and probably the most overpowered unit in the entire game, and this is a game in which Custodes exist. Now, the Sicaran Arcus, it's not about sponson weapons, it's not about the main hull weapon. The Sicaran Arcus, it's all about that missile launcher on top. Oh Macca, that's just a glorified whirlwind, you say. Oh no, no, it's not. You see, stock this vehicle is 205 expensive points, but once you realise what that gun on top does, or missile launcher, you'll go, why is it so cheap? Because that main gun is 36 inches range, it's strength 8, it's AP 2, it's heavy 4. And successful jink and cover saves against this weapon have to be re-rolled. That's strong, but not ungodly OP, Macca. No, you're right. Except, it also has the rule, cluster warhead. If the weapon successfully scores a penetrating hit on a target with an armor value, roll D3 times on the vehicle damage table and select the highest result. And it's strength 8 and AP 2. It will get penetrating hits. And it will cause things to go boom. Oh, it gets better. The tank as a whole has a thing called Ripple Fire. On any turn in which the Sicaran Arcus does not move in both the movement and shooting phase, you may choose to fire the twin Arcus launcher twice. 8 strength 8 AP 2 shots from this thing. Ugh. The regular Sicaran has 6 strength 7 AP 4 rending shots, and that was considered strong. And then this thing comes along and it's firing 8 shots, which are stronger, have a much lower AP, absolutely annihilate vehicles that they penetrate. It's just brutal. But wait, like an infomercial, there's more. You have 3 additional missile variants you can buy for the vehicle, for a cost of 15, 20, and 30 points respectively. First, the Sky Spear warheads. Don't leave home without them, guys, because if you need them and don't have them, you will miss them. Range 48 inches, strength 7, AP 3, heavy 4. They have that terminal tracking rule, so no cover and jink saves against them that can't be rerolled. It has Skyfire and Interceptor. And if you don't move, because it won't be in your turn, this thing can fire twice. So if enemy flyer comes on the table, you fire 8 strength 7 AP 3 shots at it, and it has to reroll successful jinks against them. Yeah, it's pretty brutal. On top of that, we have another weapon, the Pyrax warhead. Range is 36 inches, they're only strength 5, only AP 4, they're heavy 2, not many shots. Oh, but wait a minute, they're large blast, 5 inches and ignore cover. Yes, this is a better whirlwind than the whirlwind. Because unlike a whirlwind, you don't get a cover save. And it fires 2 shots, and wait a minute, if you didn't move, you had to fire 4 shots. Large blast! What's that? Militia? Sora Auxilia? Oh no, you're not safe. I mean, you can give this thing sponsor weapons, but it's just better to upgrade some of the missiles on it and save points on the sponsons by taking none. Lastly, the expensive Neutron Flux Warhead. Range, a lowly 24. Strength, 7. It's okay. AP, 4. Okay, this is pretty much an autocannon. Heavy, 4. Yeah, it's still looking like a Predator autocannon. Terminal tracking, oh yeah. Reroll successful jinx and that. Nothing crazy. Neutron Flux. Oh, that's a strange rule. What does that do? Well, weapons gain the instant death special rule when targeting models with a Cybernetica Cortex. That's Thanatars, Castellax, Vorax, Domitar, Arlatax, Domitar Ferrum. That will also be the new Dark Angels Battle Automata that they'll be getting. That's a lot of different units from the Mechanicum range. This is a Mechanicum killer. The only thing is, AP4. The Vorax is the only unit which is not going to get its straight up save against this. The chances of getting the instant death off are, well, you're going to hit with probably 6 of your 8 shots. You're going to wound with probably 3 of those, and they're going to save probably 2 of those. So you might kill 1 Castellax, or Vorax, or, Domitar. It's not the greatest in the world. I think Auto Mechanicum players overhype it, but for 30 points, it's a very pricey missile upgrade. I find that generally, sticking to the Twin Arcus weapon, a much better choice. So, that's the Sicaran Arcus, a very well-balanced vehicle to be sure. Moving along, we get to the black sheep of the family, the Sicaran Omega. And I call it the black sheep of the family because ever since I saw this thing unveiled, I've gone, that is terrible. You see, the Sicaran Omega is 220 points. But then you look at it and you go, man, those giant plasma cannons it's got on it, that must have some good special rules. You'd be wrong. Those weapons are only 24 inches range. They're only strength 7 AP2. They're heavy 6 and twin linked. And you go, oh, it's not terrible. But 220 points for that, that's essentially 6-man plasma tactical support squad. That's not great at all. You can also fire it as an anti-tank weapon. It's range 24, strength 9, AP 1. So it's a half range, slightly better at punching through vehicles las cannon. With the twin linked special rule, the plasma burn special rule, and gets hot. The plasma burn special rule is an interesting one. If the target of this weapon is a vehicle and that model loses 1 or more hull points as a direct result of an attack from this weapon, roll a d6. On a 4+, the target vehicle loses an additional hull point with no cover saves allowed. If the attack resulted in a glancing hit, the number of additional hull points inflicted is 1. If the attack resulted in a penetrating hit, the number of additional hull points inflicted is d3. Sounds good in theory, except a single twin-linked las cannon shot is nothing to rely upon in a world of armor 14 and flare shields. Because you're essentially just going to glance things. And firing 1 shot from those main guns is a waste of a 220 point tank. If you want to pay 220 points, there are plenty of other units you can buy in the game that'll give you a single las cannon shot. Even if it is a slightly better las cannon, even if it is not going to do double hull points damage. Again, go back a step to the Sicaran Arcus and it's 8 strength 8 AP2 rounds, or go to the Sicker Venator with its longer range, equally strong main gun, but its main gun is capable of punching through thicker armor, and its main gun also shuts down enemy vehicles, and it's cheaper. The other thing about this vehicle is it has this volatile plasma containment special rule. Essentially, if the tank is blown up, Then you add +2 to the strength and +3 inches to the radius of the explosion. Sicaran Omega immediately suffers an explode result if it loses its final hull point due to the Gets Hot special rule. This tank would be good if it was 160 points. At 220 points, it is 60 points overcosted. It is crap. You can buy a Deredeo with plasma and an animatic Paves and it will do more for your army. You can buy a Sicaran Arcus and it will kill more things because the Sicaran Arcus has 8 Strength 8 AP2 shots versus the 6 Strength 7 AP2 shots of this vehicle. That's just better, and the Sicaran Arcus has longer range and can take other missile types. If you buy a Sicaran Arcus and you upgrade it, you can upgrade the Sicaran Arcus with the Sky Spear warheads, the anti-air missiles, and it will cost you the same as the stock one of this vehicle. Do not buy this tank, it is crap. I have one. I hate the thing. I never finished painting it. Well, the turret, I use the hull obviously for other projects. It is the worst possibly tank in the game. The only other unit that sort of rivals this for mediocrity is the Humble Legion Whirlwind with anti-aircraft missile loadout only. This thing can get kills, but the investment in points for this vehicle is just simply too high. You'd be better off in many cases taking a Dreadnought with a plasma cannon and a plasma blaster, for instance. A Contemptor Dreadnought with that loadout will put out more firepower than this and be far deadlier, and it is not a build I generally would recommend to people. You could take a Predator squadron of 2 Predators with magma melters or something, and it won't cost you much different to this vehicle. It'll cost you a little bit more. But you're going to get 2 vehicles out of that, not 1. A regular Sicaran has the same amount of firepower, it's just not AP2, but at least it can kill enemy flyers. It's a more versatile vehicle. It has that rapid tracking, it stops enemies from making jinx saves against it, and it's much, much cheaper. So the regular Sicaran is better. The Omega is a better tank killer. This thing is trying to do the job of a Sicaran battle tank, the original one. It is trying to be a jack of all trades, but where the original Sicaran does many things well, but nothing excellently, this does nothing well and nothing excellently. This vehicle sucks balls. So, the quick recap. Fantastic, fantastic, fantastic. Freaking OP. Terrible. This is the Sicaran family in a nutshell. The big downside to the Sicaran family is definitely the Sicker Venator and of course the original Sicaran not being able to be taken in squadrons of 2 means that being singles is very easy for them to get singled out by the enemy. Sicaran Arcus as well, if you do take one, everyone knows what this thing is capable of and that it's an overpowered broken beast, and so everyone and their dog will try and kill this thing in the first turn of every game, and you generally will not get to fire it much. It is just too high a threat to be ignored, so you have to play very conservatively with it and really pick your battles. The fact that you can't just pop out from behind a building and fire twice, that you have to sit still, means you have to be planning a turn in advance. This is a real chess unit. You need to be thinking of what your opponent's going to do turns in advance if you really want the most out of it. Personally, I like to try and find a nice bit of terrain that can only stick the missiles over and get those full hull down bonuses. That's about it to really get your money's worth out of this vehicle. Anyway, that's my overview of the Legion Sicaran battle tanks. As a family, they're all fantastic. The Omega, though, it's the one who got into drugs in his teenage years, and he's just never been quite the same since, and he's just... It needs a massive rework. Making it into a squadron has not fixed it. The best thing I can say for this tank is that nobody is going to accuse you of being cheesy if you take one. Even if you took something else cheesy in your army list, if you take this in it, you'll probably offset the fact that you took something like 20 Invictus Suzerain or something. People will be like, oh, you took an Omega, you poor man, here, have 10 more Invictus Suzerain. Take 10 Siege Tyrants, you've got to make up for it somehow, you poor bastard. I'm Mac with the Outer Circle. Thank you all for watching the episode, and we'll see you all next time.